On a cold November morning, a grown man sat on the edge of a street bench, silently praying nobody would notice his shaking hands. His business was failing. His rent was overdue. His hope was slipping away. Just as he lowered his head, defeated, a tiny voice whispered, "Mister, you look sad. Do you need help?" He looked up and saw a little girl holding out a single crumpled dollar, her only one. That moment changed everything. This story begins in a small American town, where life usually moved slowly, and neighbors waved at each other from front porches draped with fall leaves. Thomas was a hard-working man, the owner of a tiny corner bakery called Heavenly Crumbs. It wasn't fancy, a few wooden tables, the smell of warm bread, and a bell that chimed every time the door opened. For years it was his pride and his dream. But life had turned harsh that year. A new chain bakery opened just 3 blocks away. Tall glass windows, bright lights, digital screens, everything corporate. Customers left. Bills piled up. And Thomas, despite waking up at 3 a.m. every morning to knead dough, couldn't keep up. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving him to raise their teenage son Michael alone. Michael worked weekends and afternoons to help, but he was just a kid. He shouldn't have had to worry about electric bills or overdue taxes. Every night, Thomas reassured him, "Don't worry, son. God will make a way." But even he was starting to doubt his own words. On that particular morning, Thomas received the letter he had been dreading. A final notice. If he didn't pay the remaining balance by Friday, his bakery, their only source of income, would be closed permanently. He walked outside, sat on the bench across the street, and held the letter in trembling hands. He felt like a failure, a father who couldn't provide, a dreamer who was waking up to reality. He whispered into the cold air, "God, I've done everything I can. What do I do now?" People walked past him, busy with their day, not noticing the man quietly breaking down on that bench. That's when he heard soft footsteps. A little girl stood in front of him, maybe 7 or 8 years old, pink jacket, worn-out sneakers, hair tied in an uneven ponytail. She stared at him with gentle eyes and said, "Mister, why are you crying?" Thomas tried to smile through pain. "Oh, sweetheart, it's nothing. I'm just having a hard day." She hugged a small cloth doll and stepped closer. "My mom says when someone is sad, we should help." Thomas shook his head kindly. "That's very sweet, but I'll be okay." The girl looked unsure, then reached into her tiny jacket pocket. She pulled out a crumpled $1 bill, old, folded, worn from being opened 100 times. "This is my only dollar, but you can have it." Thomas froze, a grown man, receiving help from a child. No, sweetheart. I can't take that, that's yours. Buy something you like." But she shook her head with surprising firmness. "You look like you need it more, and Mommy says, oh, God sees everything. Maybe He wants me to give you this." Her innocence broke him. A tear slipped down his cheek, not of sadness, but of something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. He gently accepted the dollar and whispered, "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means." The girl smiled brightly. Then she ran back to her mother, who stood quietly in the distance. The woman placed a hand over her heart, smiled at Thomas, and they walked away. Thomas returned to his bakery with that dollar still in his hand. He placed it by the register, not as money, but as a reminder that kindness still existed. That same afternoon, something unbelievable happened. A man in a long coat walked into the bakery. He looked around slowly, breathing in the warm smell of cinnamon and fresh bread. "You must be Thomas," he said. Thomas nodded, confused. The man smiled. "I'm Daniel Hayes. I own the old office building down the road. I've been wanting to meet you." Thomas wiped flour from his hands. "How can I help you, sir?" Daniel set a business card on the counter. "I've watched this bakery for years. You've kept it running with heart, not money, and people like you, we need more of." He explained that he wanted to create a local community program to help small businesses, workshops, grants, partnerships, promotions, and everything independent. Shops needed to survive against big corporations. "I want your bakery to be the face of it," Daniel said. If you're willing. I'd like to invest in Heavenly Crumbs myself. Thomas blinked. Invest? Why me? Daniel leaned in. Because earlier today, I saw something remarkable. My daughter, she gave you her only dollar. Thomas froze. Your daughter? Daniel nodded. She said you looked like someone who needed hope. And if my little girl saw goodness in you, then so do I. Thomas felt a shiver run through his chest. It wasn't random, it wasn't luck. It was a chain of kindness, starting from a child with nothing but a soft heart and one single dollar. Daniel continued, It won't cost you anything. I just want to help you rebuild. You deserve it. Thomas felt tears again, but this time, they were tears of relief. Finally, a light after months of darkness. Within weeks, everything changed. The bakery's equipment was upgraded. New menus were printed. Community events were scheduled. Local families began visiting again. Curious, excited, supportive. Small children sat by the windows eating warm muffins. Elderly couples laughed over cups of hot cocoa. Teenagers took pictures for social media saying, This place feels like home again. And in the corner, taped to the register, still sat that crumpled $1 bill, framed in glass. People asked about it all the time. Thomas would smile and say, That dollar saved my bakery. A little girl gave it to me when I needed hope the most. One warm afternoon, the little girl and her mother returned. She spotted her dollar displayed proudly behind the counter. That's mine, she said excitedly. Thomas laughed. Yes, and it's the most precious thing in this whole shop. Her mother placed a hand on Thomas's arm. She prayed last night that you'd be okay. She kept saying, God will help him if we help him. I'm glad she was right. He looked at the child and said gently, You changed my life, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. She smiled shyly. I'm happy you're not sad anymore. Thomas crouched down, feeling emotion swell inside him. I'll tell you a secret, he said. You didn't just help me. You helped everyone who loves this bakery. She giggled and then gave him a tiny hug. And in that moment, he realized something. Kindness doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes the smallest heart can create the biggest miracle. As the golden evening light filled the bakery, Thomas whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. For the little girl, for her dollar, for the second chance he didn't expect, and for the reminder that God sends help in the most surprising ways. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change someone's world.